Welcome dear students to a new lecture on engineering mechanics. We will be discussing the vibrations portions, that is portions related to vibrations, that is mostly simple harmonic motion is what we will discuss in this lecture. This is part of module 5 syllabus. Thanks to Rildin, Sabir and Anna for helping me put this lecture together. So let us talk about vibrations. This is a cantilever beam, and we are assuming the beam is massless and the entire mass is lumped as a ball that is kept at the one end of the cantilever, and the left end we are having a support. This support is let us assume that this is a machine that is capable of moving this mass up and down in a regular pattern. So, to start with, what is vibration? Vibration means to and fro motion about a mean position. For example, if we consider this mass, let us consider this as the mean position or the starting position of the mass. And when we start this machine, what's going to happen is this mass will move upward, then it will come back to the mean position, then it will move downward, it will come back again to the mean position. So that is what we call as one cycle. That is one to and fro motion, we will call it as one cycle. Similarly, as long as the machine is working, this mass will be undergoing several such cycles of motion. So we will call that as a vibratory motion. Now, if the vibration repeats after a regular interval of time, that means we will call it as a periodic vibration. For example, let us say this mass is moving up, coming back to the mean position, moving to the again in the downward direction and coming back to the mean position. Let us assume that all this happens, this is one cycle. Let us say one cycle of motion happens in say 2 seconds. So if all the cycles of this particular mass is happening in 2 seconds, then we will say this vibration is repeating after a regular time interval, and such vibrations will be called as periodic vibrations. And if the period or the time interval for a cycle of vibration is not the same, then we will call it as non-periodic or random vibrations. Example of a random vibration is an earthquake excitation, where the uh, land or the earth vibrates without any regularity. It is known as random vibrations. Now, if the energy is supplied throughout the duration of motion, then we call it as forced vibration. For example, in this case, this mass is vibrating because the machine is continuously supplying it motion and energy. So if this is known as the external source that is supplying the motion energy required for vibration, and that energy is provided throughout the vibratory motion of this mass, then we will call it as a forced vibration. So in forced vibration, the external force or the external source supplying the energy of vibration is uh, present throughout the duration of the vibratory motion. Example is vibrating machines, pistons in vehicles, etc. So we have discussed two major classifications of vibration we have discussed. One is periodic vibration, where the vibration repeats after regular interval, and another one is non-periodic vibration. This is a classification based on the periodicity of vibration. Similarly, we also discussed another classification, that is forced vibration, where the vibrating source is present throughout the duration of motion. Let us consider another classification, which is free vibration. In free vibration, the energy is input at the at one instant at the beginning of the motion. For example, let us assume that this is similar to that of a tuning fork. You might be aware of a tuning fork. So how do we initiate motion in a tuning fork? We try to hit the tuning fork to some object, and this will initiate an energy into input and energy into the tuning fork, and it will start vibrating. So the vibration energy is supplied only at the start of the motion. Such motions are known as free vibration. And this energy can be supplied either by an initial displacement, that is you pull the mass down and then release. Such a thing is known as an initial displacement. We will denote displacement by the letter x, and an initial displacement we will represent it by x in the bracket 0. This is representing an initial displacement. 0 represents time t equal to 0. So example is that of a simple pendulum. For example, if you want to make the simple pendulum vibrate, you simply pull the pendulum to one side and then release it. Then it will undergo to and fro motion. So that is initiation of vibration by initial displacement. Another way is you can initiate it by providing initial velocity. That is, we will represent velocity by the letter x dot 0. So this dot here represent it is dx by dt, and 0 represents time t equal to 0. So x dot 0 represent initial velocity. So initial velocity can be provided to an object by providing a sudden impact. For example, the case of a tuning fork, we are giving a sudden impact to it, which is initiating the vibration. Now we can also have a combination of an initial velocity and initial displacement. Example is that of a diving board. For example, a swimmer jumping from a diving board. So what he is doing is he is at the same time giving an impact on the diving board, which will give it an initial velocity. At the same time, he will be displacing the diving board to some extent and then jumping off it. That is, it is having both initial velocity and initial displacement. So these are ways in which vibration energy is supplied only at the beginning or the start of the motion. So such motions are known as free vibration. So once again, fundamental classification, one is based on the periodicity, that is periodic and non-periodic vibration. Another one is based on the energy, duration of energy input, that is if the energy is input throughout the motion, we call it as free vibration. If the energy is input, we call it as forced vibration. If the energy is input only one time, then we call it as free vibration. Next concept that we have to learn is the idea of degree of freedom. Degree of freedom represents the number of independent coordinates, displacement coordinates, that are required to define the displaced position of the vibrating mass at any instant of the motion. So let us consider the case of a water tank. So here what we are having is a water tank. So this is the water tank, which is having filled with water, and we are having some supporting columns and beams. So if you look into the water tank, the weight of the supporting structure is very less compared to the weight of the mass it is supporting. So we can assume that this is a massless supporting structure and this is a heavy mass that is concentrated at the top. Now imagine that the ground is moving, having a to and fro motion. Then what is going to happen is this water tank will also be having to and fro motion. So the deformed position or the displacement of this water tank can be represented by the displacement of this mass. We are having a we can assume that it is a lumped mass system where the entire mass is concentrated at the top, and the displacement of the mass will define the displacement of the entire system. So in such cases, we will call it as a single degree of freedom system. Once again, a single degree of freedom system means the displacement of the entire structure can be defined by the displacement of the mass element in it. Similarly, let us take the case of a single story house. In the case of a single story house, again, the if you take the house, the floor slab will be having the largest, will be the object having the largest mass in the entire building, and therefore we will assume the entire mass of the building to be concentrated at the floor level. So, and when the ground is moving, the displacement of this structure is largely defined by the displacement of the mass of the building that is concentrated at the floor level. Once, therefore, we again consider this as a single degree of freedom system. That means if you want to know what is the displacement of this structure, you only need to know the displacement of the floor level. Now consider the case of a two-story building. Here we are having the mass that is concentrated at floor level 1 as well as floor level 2. Therefore we require the displacement of mass at floor level 1 as well as mass at floor level 2. Thus, we require two displacement coordinates to define the position of this building. Therefore, we call it as a 2 degree of freedom system. Similarly, if you require more than 2 degrees of freedom to define the position of a particular structure, then you will call it as multi-degree of freedom system or multiple degree of freedom systems. So in this, the concept that we have discussed is the idea of degree of freedom. Degree of freedom means the number of displacement coordinates that are required to define the position of the vibrating mass. So if the mass of one component of the building or the structure is much higher than the other component, we will assume the entire mass to be concentrated on on the position of that component. For example, in the case of water tank, the mass of this tank is much higher than the mass of all the other components. Therefore, we assume the entire mass to be concentrated at the tank level. Similarly, in the building, the floor slab is having the largest mass and is much higher compared to the other components, and therefore we assume all the mass to be concentrated at the floor level. Similar is the case for these two. Here we are having two floor levels. So two masses we are considering. Now let us consider the mechanism of vibration. Consider the case of again a pendulum. Here again the mass here is, we are assuming the entire mass to be concentrated here. This is a vibrating system. This is a supporting structure. However, we assume it is massless. Now when we say it is vibrating, it means that it is going to move in the downward direction, come back to the mean position. Again it's going to move in the upward direction, come back to the mean position. This is one to and fro motion or one cycle of vibration. So such kind of vibrations we will call it as undamped free vibrations. That is, here this vibration is going to continue until it is stopped by an external force. Until the vibration is stopped by some external force or some external mechanism, this vibration is going to continue. Such vibrations we'll call it as undamped free vibration. There is no way the energy supplied to the system can get dissipated. However, this is an imaginary situation and do not happen in real life. In real life, let us consider a situation. So it has started vibrating. However, when it went down, it has broken. Now imagine, as it moved or let us say it undergone several cycles, and after undergoing several cycles it has broken. Now when this breaks, what is going to happen? Whatever energy of vibration that it was having is now lost, or we say a crack in the system has resulted in dissipation of the vibration energy. So one of the way in which energy can be dissipated is by cracks. Similarly, there can be friction in the system which can dissipate the cracks. For example, different structural components can have friction between them, and that can also dissipate cracks. So all these kind of mechanisms like cracks, friction, etc. are known as energy dissipation mechanism. They will dissipate the vibratory energy, and thereby the vibration will come to a stop. It will not continue forever. So such energy dissipation mechanisms in real systems are known as damping, and such kind of vibrations are known as damped free vibration. So if this is again another classification of vibration, one is damped vibration, another one is undamped vibration. In undamped vibration, there is no energy dissipation mechanism. That means when there is no energy dissipation mechanism, the vibration is going to continue forever until it is stopped by an external force, and such mechanisms are imaginary. Now, in real systems, what is going to happen is, after several cycles of vibration, there can be friction between the components that can dissipate the vibration energy. Therefore, gradually it will come to a stop. Similarly, there can also be cracks developing in the system which can also dissipate the vibratory energy and bringing the system to stop. Such systems are known as damped free vibration. Now let us consider a common representation of a vibratory system known as a spring mass damper model. So the mass in the system, this is known as the mass. We talked about the entire mass of the system being concentrated at the position of the largest mass. So that component is known as the mass component. Similarly, the elastic component, which is going to bring the body back to its original position. For example, if we consider the previous slide, if we consider this system, when it is displaced from its mean position and it goes down, what is bringing the body back to its original position is the stiffness or the elasticity of this particular supporting structure. So this elasticity or the stiffness of this supporting structure will try to bring it back to its original position. And at this position, what is happening? The mass is in motion, and the mass is having certain inertial effects. Therefore, the mass will have a tendency to continue in its state of motion. Therefore, it will be moving in the uh, once again, if we consider this particular mass, now this mass has moved in the downward direction. The mass is already in motion. Now, as it moves down, there will be stiffness or elastic forces that will be developing in this supporting structure, which will try to bring it back to its mean position. Now once it reaches the mean position, what is going to happen is the mass will be having inertial effects and want to continue in its motion. Therefore it will move in the upward direction. Again, as it moves in the upward direction, stiffness or elastic forces are going to get set up in the supporting structure, which will try to bring it back to its original position. So the three major components in any vibratory system is, one is known as stiffness or elastic component, which will try to bring it back to its original position, a damping component which will try to dissipate the vibratory energy, and a mass component which will be having inertial effects. So this can be represented as three distinct elements or three independent elements in a spring mass damper model. So mass is represented by a block. Similarly, damper is represented in this fashion. This is known as a dashpot mechanism. Similarly, this is the stiffness or the elastic member, which is represented by a spring. K is the stiffness of the spring. So we need to learn two notations. We already discussed, if x is the displacement, then the velocity dx by dt can be represented as x dot. Similarly, the acceleration d square x by dt square can be represented by x double dot. F of t is the time varying external force, x is the degree of freedom of the mass. Now the different components are F of t, time dependent external force, m is the mass, which is known as the inertial component. As we discussed in the previous slide, it will, if it is moving, it will have a tendency to continue in its state of motion. That is known as the inertial component. Also from D'Alembert's principle, we learned the magnitude of inertial force, Fi equals mass into acceleration. Here we will not use A, rather we will use x double dot. Now, second is the energy dissipation mechanism, which is the damping component, which is represented by this dashpot mechanism C. C is known as the damping coefficient. Now, we will be using an idealized viscous damper. A viscous damper means the one in which the damping force is proportional to the velocity. A viscous damper means one in which the damping force Fd is proportional to the velocity. And the C is known as the damping coefficient, which is the constant of proportionality. And the third element is the spring or the stiffness element or the elastic element, which will try to restore the mass to its original position. The role of the stiffness element is to restore the mass to its original position, and the stiffness force is Fs is equal to K into X. It is an elastic component, K into X, where K is the stiffness. So in this slide, what we have learned is the spring mass damper model. The spring, the mass, and the damper, these are the three main components in any vibrating system. Mass is the inertial component, damper is the energy dissipation mechanism, and spring is the elastic or the stiffness or the restoring force or the restoring element, bringing the mass back to its original position. Now let us consider the concept of stiffness in a much detailed manner. Stiffness simply means the force required to produce unit deformation. So if you look into the formula for stiffness force, it was Fs equal to K into X. So if you rewrite this equation, we'll get K equals Fs by X. If we put x equal to 1, we will get the idea of this definition. That is force required to produce unit deformation. K will become Fs, that is force required to produce unit deformation. So the unit will be Fs is a force, the unit is Newton. X is a displacement, the unit is meter. Therefore, the unit of stiffness will be Newton per meter. Now, another thing that we can notice is the stiffness K is inversely proportional to the length. Stiffness K becomes inversely proportional to the length of the system. So that is another thing you can notice from this particular formula. So for example, you are given a spring and you cut the spring into two equal halves. What has happened? You have uh, uh, you have reduced the length of the system by half. So when the length is halved, what is going to happen to the stiffness? The stiffness is going to get doubled. Similarly, imagine a situation when you have cut the spring into three equal halves. You have divided the length in, you have reduced the length by one one third. So what is going to happen? The stiffness is going to become 3 times 3k. So this concept is important for us to solve certain problems. Now let us consider the concept of equivalent spring. When we say equivalent spring is a system may be comprised of more than one springs. So multiple springs will be kept. Equivalent spring means that single spring which can replace a set of springs that are used to connect to a mass. Let us say you are having a mass of block M connected using three springs. Equivalent spring means a single spring that will have the same effect as the three springs together. So let us consider a case wherein we are having a mass of a block of mass M and connected by two springs K1 and K2. Here the springs are connected directly to the mass. Such kind of connections where the springs are connected directly to the mass, we will call it as parallel connection. Now when we say equivalent spring is a single spring that can replace the two springs. That is, this is the equivalent spring. K equivalent is the equivalent spring stiffness. So when we say this spring and these two this spring is equivalent to this system, it means that the mass under both the cases will have the same displacement. That is the idea of equivalent spring. Now let us consider the free body diagram of this particular system. So mass is given, F is the external force, let us say it is displaced by a distance x, then Fs1 equal to K1x will be the restoring force in spring 1, Fs2 equal to K2x will be the restoring force in spring 2. So you have to understand that if it is a parallel connection, you can see that if the mass is moving by a distance x, both the springs will be stretched or compressed by the same amount. Therefore, the spring forces in Fs1 and Fs2 will be of this fashion. Now imagine the equivalent spring is also stretched by the same amount. If we try to write the free body diagram of the block, we will have external force F and spring force in the equivalent spring will be K equivalent into X. Now both these systems are identical or they are equivalent to each other. Therefore, this force should be equal to the sum of these two forces. So if we try to write an equation of equilibrium, once again a definition for equivalent spring having same effect as a set of springs together. Parallel connection means the springs are connected directly to the mass and will be stretched equally. So Fs equal to Fs1 plus Fs2, comparing the two diagrams. That is K equivalent into X will be equal to K1x plus K2x. We will get for a parallel connection the equivalent spring stiffness is the sum of the stiffness of the each of the spring. So you have to remember this formula. For a parallel connection, equivalent spring stiffness will be equal to sum of the stiffness of the individual springs. Now let us consider the case of a series connection. If it is a series connection, it means that the springs are not directly connected to the mass. Rather, they are connected uh, to each other. This will be the equivalent spring, which will have the same effect as the two springs together. So in series connection, the springs are connected end to end. So x equals x1 plus x2. So if total displacement of the mass is x, then both the springs will be stretched by different amounts x1 and x2. So the total displacement x will be equal to x1 plus x2. Now one thing we have to understand is the line of action of this force will be the same throughout. That is, the effect of this force on both the springs will be the same. That is, the force acting on spring 1 as well as the force acting on spring 2 is going to be the same, because they both lie on the same line of action. We might have learned the principle of transmissibility of force. That is, the effect of a force is the same throughout the line of action of the force. Therefore, the force acting on spring 1 as well as the force acting on spring 2 is the same. Also, the force acting on this equivalent spring is also the same. So if you write the equations for each of the spring forces, F will be equal to K equivalent into X. Similarly, here F will be equal to K2 into X2. Similarly, F will be equal to K1 into X1. So if you rewrite that in a fashion, you can get expressions like this for X1 as well as X2. So we can cancel F from all of them and get this equation: 1 by K equivalent equals 1 by K1 plus 1 by K2. So this is the equation for equivalent spring stiffness for a series connection. That is, 1 by K equivalent equals sum of the 1 by K of each of the springs. You have to remember this formula also. Now let us consider the case of a simple harmonic motion. Once again, we are considering a spring mass damper system. If we consider the free body diagram of the block, the forces that are acting is F of t is acting. Then we have the inertial force mx double dot acting in the opposite direction. Spring force is acting in the opposite direction, and damping force is also acting in the opposite direction. So if we consider the equilibrium of the mass under D'Alembert's principle, we have F of t equals Fi plus Ft plus Fs. So for an undamped free vibration, the damping force will be equal to 0. Also, the external force F of t will be equal to 0 for free vibration. So Fi plus Fs equal to 0. Fi is mx double dot, Fs is kx. So mx double dot plus kx equal to 0. X double dot plus k by m x equal to 0. Let us replace k by m by omega square. So x double dot plus omega square x equal to 0. This we call it as the governing differential equation for simple harmonic motion. This is a format of governing differential equation for simple harmonic motion, where the angle, also you can replace it as x double dot equals minus omega square x. That is, the acceleration is proportional to the displacement. The acceleration is proportional to the displacement and is directed away from it. The negative sign indicate that it is directed away from it. And omega equals root of k by m, where omega is the natural frequency, or you can call it as the natural angular frequency or the circular frequency. All these are different names of angular frequency or the natural frequency. So the governing differential equation for simple harmonic motion is x double dot plus omega square x equal to 0. And for a simple harmonic motion, the acceleration is proportional to displacement and is directed away from the mean position. And the expression for natural frequency, the unit is radian per second, is omega root of k by m, where k should be in is the stiffness, which is in Newton per meter always, and m should be the mass, which has to be in kilogram always. Now another quantity that we have to understand is time period. Time period is represented in seconds, and the formula for time period is 2 pi by omega. Time period means it is the time taken to complete one oscillation, that is, to complete one to and fro motion. And frequency f, which the unit is hertz or second raised to minus 1, it is 1 by time period. It can also be written as omega by 2 pi. Frequency means it is the number of oscillations that is completed in 1 second. So frequency means the number of oscillations or the number of cycles completed in 1 second, cycles per second. Next topic we have to learn is the solution of the governing differential equation of simple harmonic motion. So we know that the governing differential equation for simple harmonic motion is x double dot plus omega square x equal to 0. If we consider the initial conditions, that is, it is a free undamped vibration. Free vibrations are initiated by initial conditions. Initial conditions can be an initial displacement x is equal to x0 or an initial velocity x dot equal to x0. So the solution to the governing differential equation is of the form x equals a cos omega t plus b sin omega t. So if we apply the initial conditions to this equation number 1, we will get, applying the first initial condition, that is at t equal to 0, x equal to x0. If we apply this, we will get a is equal to x0. Similarly, if we apply the second initial condition, that is x dot is the velocity, if you differentiate this expression, you will get this particular expression. And to this expression, if you apply x dot equal to x dot 0 at t equal to 0, we will be getting this expression. If you simplify this further, you will get b equal to x dot 0 by omega. So these two terms you have to by heart. That is, the general solution is of the form x equal to a cos omega t plus b sin omega t, and a is equal to x0, that is the initial displacement, and b is equal to x dot 0 by omega, where x dot 0 is the initial velocity. Once again, this is a general solution, and these are the coefficients. Now if you consider a triangle in this particular format, where a and b becomes the sides of it and phi becomes an angle, the hypotenuse will be, by Pythagoras theorem, will be square root of a square plus b square. Phi we will call it as the phase angle. If you can, from the by applying trigonometry, you can write a is equal to r cos phi, and you can write b is equal to r sin phi, where r is known as the amplitude of vibration, which is square root of a square plus b square. That will be the amplitude of vibration. You can replace a and b in this equation as by these particular expressions, and then you will get this equation. This equation can further be rewritten as r into cos omega t minus phi. You might be remembering the trigonometric expression cos a minus b equals cos a cos b plus sin a sin b. So this is a if you manipulate this equation, you can get this one. So where phi is the phase angle, which is tan inverse of b by a from this particular triangle. So again, this is another expression you have to remember. So one way of writing the general solution for the governing differential equation is a cos omega t plus b sin omega t. You have to remember the value of a as well as the value of b. Another way of writing the general solution is r into cos omega t minus phi. Again, phi is tan inverse of b by a, r is square root of a square plus b square. This you can remember by remembering this triangle. Now here the question is, we are having a circle and a particle is undergoing circular motion. So this particle is undergoing circular motion, and what we are having here is the projection of this particle on the horizontal diameter. This particle is being projected on the horizontal diameter of the circle. So as the particle moves, what is going to happen is the projection is also going to start moving towards the left. So it is moving towards the left and it has reached some extreme position. Now as the particle moves downward, what's going to happen is it is going to come back. So if you look, as the particle started moving from here and it reached, what happened was this projection was moving in this direction and reached some extreme position. And when the particle moved from here till here, what happened is the projection retraced back to the mean position. Now again, when the particle is moving in the other direction, the projection is moving into the other extreme. And now as the particle completes one complete circle, what has happened is the projection completed one to and fro motion about the mean position. Therefore, visually what this means is the projection of a particle undergoing circular motion about any of the diameter of the circle is a case of simple harmonic motion or a to and fro motion or a vibratory motion. Now we need to prove this mathematically. Visually it appears to us as a case of simple harmonic motion. However, we need to prove this mathematically. And proving mathematically that any particular problem is a case of simple harmonic motion simply means that we have to see whether the governing differential equation of the particular problem is of the form x double dot plus omega square x is equal to 0. So if you are all that you have to do is try to find out using trigonometry some relation for the displacement x, and once you have got the expression for the displacement x, simply see whether that expression for the displacement x satisfies the equation x double dot plus omega square x equal to 0. So let us consider that the time t equal to 0 is started measuring when the particle is at the extreme position. That is, the projection is at the extreme position. This is the mean position and these are the extreme positions. So we are considering the projection of the particle on the horizontal diameter. So when the particle is at the extreme position, we are starting to measure the time, that is t equal to 0. So at some other instant, we are measuring, let us say at time t, 10 seconds or 20 seconds. The particle is at this position. So the projection will be here. If we try to make a triangle, if omega is angular velocity, then the angular displacement that is covered in a time t will be omega t. If you try to develop a expression for the displacement x, so we can develop from this triangle. So r is the radius of the circle, so that will be the amplitude. Omega t is the angular displacement. This will form a right angular triangle. X will be the displacement from the mean position. So you can get you will see that this particular vertical side will be sine omega t, and this will be r sine omega t, and this will, let us call this as x, and x will be r cos omega t. So the question is to prove that the projection of the particle in uniform circular motion on the horizontal diameter is simple harmonic motion. So let us, from the particular triangle that we have developed, we know that x means the displacement from the mean position. It is equal to r cos omega t. So we find out x dot. This relation for x dot has to be remembered. That is, x dot equals omega root of r square minus x square. So how do we get this expression? We know r sine omega t is this vertical side. So if you apply Pythagoras theorem, you will see that r sine omega t will be equal to square root of r square minus x square. It is nothing but Pythagoras theorem. X double dot, you will get it as minus omega square into r cos omega t, that is x dot equals minus omega square x. This is nothing but the governing differential equation for simple harmonic motion. So the expression for displacement has satisfied the governing differential equation of simple harmonic motion. Therefore this is a case of simple harmonic motion. Similarly, let us assume a case when the measurement time has started from the extreme position. That is, as we know, we are considering the projection of the particle on the horizontal diameter, and this becomes the main position and this becomes the extreme position. Let us assume time has started when particle is at the extreme position. So at any other instant, if we consider the triangles, we will get x is equal to r cos omega t. So once again, another thing you have to remember is at the extreme position, the velocity of the particle will be 0 and the displacement of the particle will be maximum or will be equal to its amplitude. The phase angle can be found out as phi is equal to tan inverse of b by a. So b is nothing but x dot by omega and a is x0. So you will see that tan inverse b by a is equal to 0, that is phase angle is equal to 0. X is equal to r cos omega t minus phi, phi is equal to 0, so r is equal to cos omega t. X is equal to r cos omega t. So these expressions are required for doing the problems. So how you have to remember this is, when the time is measured when the particle is at the extreme position, the expression for displacement that you have to use is r cos omega t. You can either remember it by forming this triangle, or you can remember it by remembering the value of the phase angle, that is equal to 0. And how you get it equal to 0? By applying these two conditions. Another case is we measure time when the particle is at the mean position. So if you are measuring time at this point, the projection will be at the mean position. So once again, if we form the triangle, that x is the distance from the mean position, omega t is the angular displacement, you will see that x is equal to r sine omega t here from the trigonometry. Now let us see how this can be found out using the phase angle. So at the mean position, velocity is going to be equal to maximum and displacement will be equal to 0. So if you apply tan inverse of b by a, you will see that it is coming b by a is coming as infinity, and therefore tan inverse of infinity will be equal to pi by 2. So if you apply that in the equation, x is equal to r cos omega t minus phi, you will get it as r sin omega t. So you can again, when the displacement is measured when the particle is at the mean position, you have to take x equal to r sin omega t. Now this expression can either be remembered by remembering this condition, or you can remember it by simply visually by this triangle. Now before we start doing some example problems, let us try to remember the different concepts that we have learned. One is stiffness is inversely proportional to the length, and for a parallel connection, the equivalent spring stiffness is the sum of the stiffnesses. For a series connection, 1 by k equivalent will be equal to sum of 1 by k of different springs. The governing differential equation for simple harmonic motion is x double dot plus omega square x equal to 0. So if you want to prove any particular problem as a case of simple harmonic motion, all you have to do is find out an expression for displacement and see whether it will satisfy this particular equation. So if it satisfies this equation, then it is a case of simple harmonic motion. And again, acceleration is proportional to displacement and is always directed away from the mean position. Natural frequency, it is also known as circular frequency or angular frequency. It is unit is radian per second, and it is given by root of k by m, where k is in Newton per meter and m is in kilogram. Time period is 1 by 2 pi by omega. The unit is seconds. It is the time taken for one oscillation. Frequency means unit is hertz or cycles per second. It is 1 by time period. It is also equal to omega by 2 pi. It is a number of cycles completed in 1 second. Again, the solution for the governing differential equation is x equal to a cos omega t plus b sin omega t. You can also rewrite it as r into cos omega t minus phi. Now a is x0, b is x0 dot by omega, r is amplitude, which is the square root of a square plus b square. Phase angle phi is equal to tan inverse of b by a. And another thing is projection of a particle in uniform circular motion on any of the diameter is a case of simple harmonic motion. And expression for a velocity x dot can be obtained as omega root of r square minus x square. At the mean position, you will be having, the particle will be having, displacement will be 0 and velocity will be maximum. Therefore, the phase angle will be pi by 2. At the extreme position, the displacement will be equal to the amplitude, velocity will be equal to 0 and acceleration will be maximum, that is r omega square. And when the measurement is started, when the particle is at the extreme position, you know the phase angle will be equal to 0. Similarly, now let us try to do a problem related to this. So a body is moving with simple harmonic motion and is having an amplitude 1 meter and time period 2 seconds. We have to find the velocity and acceleration at t equal to 0.4 seconds. First case is the time is measured when the particle is at the mean position. Second case, the time is measured when the particle is at the extreme position. So given that the radius amplitude is 1 meter and time period is 2 seconds, let us find the angular frequency omega, that is 2 pi by t. So we will get it as pi radian per second. To find x dot and x double dot at t equal to 0.4 seconds, we know the expression for velocity as x dot equals omega root of r square minus x square and acceleration is x double dot equals minus omega square x. So for both we require this quantity x, that is the displacement at t equal to 0.4 seconds. So that is the first thing we need to find out. Displacement at t equal to 0.4 seconds is required. Omega we have already found out. R is given in the question. Therefore x is what we have to find out at t equal to 0.4 seconds. Now time is measured when the particle is at the mean position. So we have learned previously that the phase angle will be pi by 2. Therefore x will be equal to r sine omega t. So we require this term omega t now. Now what we have to understand is, whenever there is a term inside the sine or cosine, this term has to be in degrees. It should not be in radians. So x is equal to r sine omega t, where omega t is in degrees. So at t is equal to 0.4 seconds, omega t will be equal to 0.4 into pi radian. So pi is given in radian. We have to convert that into degree. So you multiply by 180 by pi. You will get it as 72 degree. Now if you apply x equal to r sine omega t, it is 1 sine 72 degree. You will get it as 0.951 meter. Now at t equal to 0.4 seconds, you can calculate the velocity. X dot equals omega root of r square minus x square. Simply substitute the values. You will get it as 0.97 meter per second. Acceleration can also be found out as minus omega square x. So if there is a minus sign here, you will get the acceleration. Now let us consider the second case where the particle time is measured when the particle is at the extreme position. Again, phi is equal to 0, x equals r cos omega t is in degrees. You find out what is omega t, you will get omega t is in radian. Convert that into omega t in degrees, you will get it as 72 degree. At t equal to 0.4 second, x equals r cos omega t, you will get it as 0.31 meter. Again, velocity is omega root of r square minus x square. You can get it as 2.99 meter per second. And acceleration is minus omega square x minus pi square into 0.31. You will get it as minus 3.06 meter per second square. So let us consider another example. So here the body is moving with simple harmonic motion and is having velocities 10 meter per second and 4 meter per second at 2 meter and 4 meter from the mean position. We need to find the amplitude and the time period. So these are the things that are given. Here one difference is there. This notation is x dot. It is not the x. This is the expression for acceleration. You have to put only single dot here. So at velocity at x is equal to 2 meter is 10 meter per second and velocity at x is equal to 4 meter is 4 meter per second. We need to find the amplitude as well as the time period. So we know that expression for velocity is omega root of r square minus x square. So let us try to substitute whatever things that are given to us. 10 is equal to omega root of r square minus 2 square, that is equation number 1, and 4 is equal to omega root of r square minus 4 square, that is equation number 2. Now if we try to square both the sides of these two equations and divide equation 1 by equation number 2, we will be getting this particular expression, that is 10 by 4 the whole square is equal to r square minus 4 divided by r square minus 16. If you simplify this particular expression, you will get r, that is the amplitude, is equal to 4.28 meter. Now once you have the value of r, if you substitute in any of the equation number 1 or equation number 2, you will get the value of omega. So omega, you will get it as 2.64 radian per second. So the time period will be 2 pi by omega, that is 2.38 seconds. Now let us consider one more example. Here what we are having is a helical spring under a weight of 20 Newton extends by 0.3 mm. A weight of 700 Newton is supported on the spring. We have to determine the time period as well as the frequency of vibration. We also the when the mass is displaced by 0.9 centimeter and released. That is, when you displace a mass by 0.9 centimeter and you're releasing them, we are making it to undergo free vibration by providing an initial displacement, and that initial displacement that you're providing is 0.9 centimeter, and that will be the maximum amplitude with which it is going to be vibrating. Therefore 0.9 centimeter is also equal to the amplitude of the vibration. Question is, we need to find the velocity of the weight when it is 4 mm below the mean position. So at x is equal to 4 mm, you have to find the velocity. That is the question. Now first thing that is given in the question is, the spring extends by 0.3 mm under a weight of 20 Newton. So for the spring to extend by 0.3 mm, you require a force of 20 Newton. That is, force required to extend by 0.3 mm is 20 Newton. So what will be the force required to extend by 1 meter? That is what we need to find out. So stiffness K is equal to F by X, that is 20 divided by 3 into 10 raised to minus 3, that is 66.67 into 10 raised to 3 Newton per meter. That will give you the stiffness of the spring, that is force required to extend by 1 meter. This will be the stiffness. Next is, the mass is displaced by 0.9 centimeter and released. When we say the mass is displaced by 0.9 centimeter and released, it means that the amplitude of the vibration is 0.9 centimeter, that is 0.9 into 10 raised to minus 2 meter. So these are the informations that are given in the question. Now what we need to find out is the time period and frequency of oscillation of 700 Newton weight. So angular frequency omega equals root of K by M, that is square root of K is the stiffness in Newton per meter and M is the mass in kilogram. If you substitute that, you will get it as 30.57 radian per second. So you have the angular frequency. Time period T will be equal to 2 pi by omega. You can substitute it, you will get it as 0.206 seconds, and frequency equals 1 by time period, you can get it as 4.86 hertz or cycles per second. To find the velocity at x is equal to 4 mm, the equation for velocity is omega root of r square minus x square. Omega is 30.57 and r is 0.9 into 10 raised to minus 2. Similarly, x is 0.4 into 10 raised to minus 3. If you solve this equation, you will get it as 2.15 meter per second. Let us consider one more example. We have a spring of stiffness 6 kilonewton per meter. It is cut into two equal parts and connected to a mass in parallel connection. If the mass vibrates with a frequency of 3 Hz, we need to determine the mass. So if the spring is cut into two equal halves, again the frequency is given. So the time period will be equal to 1 by frequency, that is 1 by 3, and angular frequency can be found out as 2 pi by t, that is 18.84 radian per second. Now stiffness we already know is inversely proportional to the length. So when the spring is cut into two equal halves, the stiffness will be doubled. That is, it will be 12 kilonewton per meter. Now equivalent stiffness of a parallel connection means K equivalent equal to sum of the stiffness of each of the springs. So that is will be equal to 12 plus 12, that is 24 kilonewton per meter. And we know omega is equal to square root of K by M. If you replace M is equal to K by omega square, K should be in Newton per meter. So 24 into 1000 divided by 18.84 the whole square. If you do that, you will get it as 67.62 kilogram. That will be the mass of the vibrating system. So with this we finish our discussions on vibrations and simple harmonic motions. You can get more problems in the uh, textbooks. These are two practice questions. You can do using concepts that we have learned in this lecture. One discussions, we have discussed every concept in this particular lecture which are required to solve these problems. If you once again, if you look into this particular case, here the springs are connected end to end and not connected directly to the mass, so this will be a series system. Similarly here, the springs are connected directly to the mass, therefore this is a parallel system. Here also the springs are connected directly to the mass, so this is a parallel system. Now you may also have a combination of series and parallel also. So all the cases that we have discussed so far is either the springs are in series or the springs are in parallel. Now there can also be systems given to you where the springs are both in series as in are in and also in parallel. In such cases, what you have to do is you have to first solve for a series system or a parallel system and then go for the next level. So such examples can also be found in the textbooks. You may solve them also. So to summarize, the concepts that we have learned is the concept of vibrations. We talked about classifications related to periodicity, that is periodic, non-periodic. We talked about classifications related to the vibration energy input, duration of vibration energy input as free vibration and forced vibration. We also talked about another classification where there is an energy dissipation mechanism, that is damped vibration and undamped vibration. Then we talked about the solution of the we talked about the governing differential equation. And how do we prove a case is a simple harmonic motion? You simply have to find the displacement expression and substitute in the governing differential equation. If it satisfies, then it is a case of simple harmonic motion. And we talked about the solution to the governing differential equation. Then we discussed various problems related to that. We also discussed in up close regarding the concept of stiffness. So with this we end our discussions on vibrations. Um, Stay safe, happy learning. Let us together overcome this. Please feel free to ask your doubts and share your feedbacks in the comment section. We'll be right back with another lecture. Thank you.